Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV.
Do you wish your business makes it to the top list of the most searched for business in the US and around the world? Or are you searching for halal compliant services and products online? Then Halal Finder is your online resource directory pointing you to the right places and products. Let's help you explore halal products and services of your choice as we manage many halal businesses across the world. Promote your business with halalfinder.com, the only plug you need to grow. Our services include business listing, digital marketing, branding strategy, SEO campaigns, crowdfunding, and humanitarian support. On our Compassion Corner, we offer crowdfunding of halal ventures and humanitarian services. In this section, you can make or receive donations, start donation campaign, and check existing donation campaigns. And by paying zakat and sadaqah to our Compassion platform on halalfinder.com, you have supported the poor, widows or widowers, orphans, and the likes around the world. Contact us at info@halalfinder.com or call +1 718 822 5555. Get started today at halalfinder.com.
Hello and welcome to World Linkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. And today we have Writers Talk with Professor Laksmisree Banerjee and Dr. SANTOSH BAKAYA. And I will introduce them into the program now and let them introduce themselves briefly. And then we'll get into the talk about Dr. Laksmisree's wonderful new book, Blue Phoenix. It's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful collection. I've read it myself, and I look forward to discussing it. So here they are, and go ahead and introduce yourselves one by one, and we'll get started with our discussion. Go ahead, Laksmisree. Would you like to start?
This is my latest book of poems, and it was published about 2022 July, August. And soon after that, I was in quite a few literary festivals across the globe. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
And then I found that everywhere people really liked the poems.
Mm-hmm.
And they were appreciating the poems in many ways. And this is a book which is very special to me. Of all my books, this is, of course, my 9th book of poetry, but this was written during a very dark phase of my life with a dear one ailing. And it was like I wouldn't want to submit myself to anything which was negative. And these poems came one after the other. It was almost like a survival strategy to, like the Blue Phoenix, to rise from my ashes with, some kind of, I don't know whether to call it courage or fortitude or whatever, but it was definitely a survival strategy while I was writing these poems. And the poems, directly and indirectly, are about, of course, there is a little bit of, a whole lot of strife and negativism, but then there is a very strong push towards, I should say, transcendence and positivism. And that's why it's very, very close to my heart. So I thought I would want to share this with this great poet friends of mine. One, Dr. Santosh,
I believe we had a little bit of a freeze there on her. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit, Dr. Bakaya?
Yeah. Well, this is, yeah, she's, Laksmisree, are you speaking?
no, I'm not.
Carry on. Okay, I'm Santosh Pakaya, and as Laksmisree knows, I'm forever writing. I'm forever perpetually on the writing mode, and I have written 23 books so far. And my latest book is What is the Meter of the Dictionary? It's a book of poetry. I write fiction also. I have written novellas and novels, biographies too. So that's all. I just write like a mad hatter. And this is Professor Laksmisree Banerjee's day, so let her do the talking.
So I want to start with the significance of the blue phoenix. Usually, you think of a phoenix as maybe being red or orange or like flaming colors, but you use the color blue, and I'm curious what your intention with that is.
Well, in my imagination, I found, I mean, this is what I imagined, that when the fire is very intense, somewhere for me, it became blue. It's like if I read that poem, Blue Phoenix, if you permit me, I will read it later. The blue phoenix rises and then it becomes blue lava.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
And of course, I'm very indebted to our poet come painter friend, Lata Prem Sakia, who said, I will not draw unless you give me the color combination, your imagination, everything. So I said, firstly, I want a woman phoenix. And the phoenix has to have a woman's face, and the phoenix has to be blue, and the sky has to be blue also. But then when she's rising, the flames have to be orange and red, and the ashes have to be gray. And she kept on asking me while she was painting, and I was going on telling her about how I had imagined it to be. And then she did a perfect, whatever I told her, she put it on her canvas. And I'm really very indebted because, poetry, the art and craft of poetry, it is not just all about the imagination, it also has a lot of craft in it. So it came out very well.
It's a very beautiful cover. I just showed it on the screen, and I wonder what Dr. Santosh, would you like to share maybe your interpretations of the blue phoenix, like what the
Thank
symbol
you.
import
Thank
of
you,
it is?
Singh and Laksmisree Banerjee, for this wonderful opportunity. And let me tell you, I really love your book. And I love it as much as I loved this one. This was equally good. And this is as if you are explaining things to yourself. This book is all about spiritual rebirth. At times I felt it was auto suggestion. You were telling yourself, you were telling the world that things will be bright, and by telling the world, you were telling yourself. So this is all about rejuvenation, inspiration, energy. And of course, the cover is beautiful. Lata Prem Sakya, if she's there, hats off to you, Lata. You have done a wonderful job. And incidentally, she is my Facebook friend, and she's a wonderful, wonderful human being too. And
Yes.
she comments very positively on my Facebook posts and all. So what I
Yeah.
love this book is that you have very candidly juxtaposed all the negativities with the positivities, and it is ultimately the positive light that shines. It is the positive light that energizes everything. You rise to challenges, and you talk of replacing the old self with the new. So this blue phoenix, and then there's a fiery splendor in the end, so which emanates from the sphinx, phoenix, and there is light everywhere. So this is something very, very energizing, very, very inspiring, and the usage of words, the words such as sunlit and tear-drenched trance. I
Mm.
had to read this twice to get into the, to absorb the meaning. In Pebbles you use it. So I really loved this book, the cover, the symbolism behind the cover, and of course the poems. And so many poems, found an echo in my poems because I have written an entire book, Where Are the Lilacs, on against war.
Yeah.
So that was my first book of poetry, Where Are the Lilacs, and this was a line from Pablo Neruda. So I found you also talking of against war, talking of love, and
Yes.
in fact, the book is drenched in love. It is against war, and you are of course a person who loves nature. And same
Yes.
here. You can always find me on my nature walks. And these days I'm unwell, uh, supposedly, so I'll be back on my feet. So this is a beautiful book, and hats off to you, Laksmisree. I love the book.
I agree with that assessment. It's basically about transcendence and overcoming obstacles and so forth. And I know you said at the beginning of the program this is one of your darker phases, but we still see the sparkles and the light and the brightness of the phoenix rising in your poetry. So we can maybe talk a little bit about the impetus behind the book. I mean, what drove you to this moment where these poems came compelled from you, out of you, and have a little discussion about some of the importance of that.
Uh, uh, if I may be allowed,
Mhm.
the Blue Phoenix poem, which is the fifth poem, I mean the title poem, I start I I started with that poem actually
Mhm.
because I felt that what is happening to me. I mean, I can't allow myself to go deep into the, you know, into the mire or soak myself in that kind of negativism. So let me rise like the phoenix. So I wrote. Actually, it's the fifth poem in the book, but it's the title poem. So
Mhm.
the starting point was this. Should I read the Blue Phoenix, the
Yes,
poem?
please do. I would love to hear
We're
it.
waiting. We are waiting.
Yeah.
Read the entire poem.
And for those joining us today, please subscribe to our channel if you can. If you haven't already, we'd love to have you as a subscriber to the World Inkers Network or to Parrot TV. And if you're watching on Facebook, feel free to leave comments and questions if you have any for the author, for us here at Parrot TV. Looking forward to this reading.
Blue Phoenix. I rise and rise from the ashes, not as dust motes, not as dry leaves, not as scattered flakes, but as a phoenix turned eagle, with my fervent pain to foment the wilted spirit to a rising star. The cinders trampled, the embers crushed into the riotous, flowing volcano. My eruption, my liberty, ether of my torment, river of my wrenched, aching life, rumbling along jagged rocks in crying ebullience to the sea. The fiery splendor ignites my feverish, flapping wings in the inferno, inflates my flight tenfold with flames of searing agony, with raging tongues of inspiring distress, till I fly across the empyrean unbound, throbbing pinions of anguish, limitless, expansive trauma, my mobilizing freedom, blooming crackers of torpedo, soaring to the utmost crescendo. As I rise and rise in soaring marvel with my red wings of fire and blood, heaving in vermilion and cobalt till I become The bird of blue lava. I think
It is indeed a beautiful poem. I really loved it. For
I
the
especially like. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, the
I just
intensity.
thought, suddenly, it happens that when you step back after a long time, you look at the poem anew. So I find I think most of these poems are full of, very
There's
uh,
a certain raw
wow,
intensity,
paradoxes,
raw intensity
paradoxes,
of poems. Yeah.
raw and paradoxes,
Yeah, of
something,
course.
which mutual opposites,
Yeah,
and they coalesce. Somewhere I found it just now, of course.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if you
It's a
have anything
beautiful,
else,
I saw especially interesting was the destruction of the ashes and so forth that the phoenix actually with the rising of the phoenix creates in the poem, and I thought that was especially interesting because that signifies the transcendence again. So that's a really impressive image of it destroying it, the own ashes from which it rises. It's beautiful and it's intriguing.
and I was telling Laksmisree that I love this. Where are the sunflowers? Where are the sunflowers? It's so spontaneous and it's so touching the way you have written it. Where are the sunflowers? They seem to have gone into lost paths of wayward oppression, pushed into deadly desiccation, sucked into the miasma, exploding black wrath of gun shells, their throats slit open, their spines cruelly broken. So this is so touching a poem,
why
and the
don't
way
you,
you wrote it.
if you can please complete the poem?
This is completed, okay. With the permission of Dustin. Am I allowed to complete the poem?
Sure, go ahead.
No, give me some time. Okay. Oh, where are the sunflowers? Their honeyed clusters splintered, bombarded in blindness of ashen grey, bright yellows congealed in dying emulsion, putrid mash of humanity gone astray. Their loamy soil sunk into abysses. Oh, where are the sunflowers? Oh, where are the sunflowers? The endless sunshine fields in molds of cinders. I'll stop here. So it's a beautifully written poem and touches a chord somewhere. And
Absolutely.
you start feeling that everything will be all right. The way you have written, oh, Mother Ukraine, weep not. Now is the time for your sunflowers to rejuvenate once more in stretches of gold. And
Wow.
you find yourself raising your hands upwards and praying for benediction. So this is the power of your poems. Hats off.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
one of the poems that I found most interesting and touching was the one for my daughter. If you want to read that one,
Yeah,
we'd love
yeah,
to.
yeah. You make a Lakshmi Shri, recite
Yeah.
this poem for my daughter.
Yes,
You made a passing day to gift it to my girl the other day. That's a beautiful poem.
Yeah,
it is a very beautiful poem.
yeah, yeah. In this poem, I today when I was reading it, because Dustin said it's a beautiful poem, so I went
Yeah.
back to it, and
You have
I
two
thought,
poems for your daughter.
yeah, two, yeah.
Yeah.
But this one, if you somewhere, what we all know, that poetry, if it is limited to the personal and the private, it doesn't achieve its goal unless it
Right.
rises to the universal, from the personal to the universal. That's
Mhm.
something which I think we were discussing with Dustin the other day, which T.S. Eliot also talked about, the historical timelessness of poetry, and where the past, the present, the future, they commingle, and there is a universalism which is rising from the context of the personal. So here I found that a lot of the cosmic transcendence or consciousness is there. I'm reading this poem for my daughter. I made a doll of the passing of the day. I made her braids with the tangled green of dense, embracing rainforest. I made her braids with the tangled green of dense, embracing rainforests. I made the lilting streams wrap around her, wrap around her liquid femininity beauty of allurement. I made the moonlight her satin golden skin. I made the candy for clouds her bright smile. I made the rainbow her glistening raiment. I made the starry skies a sequined veil. I made the blossoming garden her coronet of flowers. I made the blossoming garden her coronet of flowers. I made the empyrean her illimitable world of dreams. I made the sun glow to bedeck her fairy forehead. At last, I gave this doll. At last, I gave this doll to my blissful girl to make our instant of love eternity. To make our instant of love eternity.
That's a very, very touching poem. And it leaves
Very.
you with a sensation in the eyes and a lump in the throat. So beautiful, beautiful poem.
Absolutely. We'll take a brief break, but we'll be right back in just a moment after this advertisement.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York PARROT, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York PARROT, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the websites they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our news site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York PARROT is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Welcome back to World Linkers Network Writers Talk. We have Professor Dr. Laksmisree Banerjee and Dr. Prof. BAKAYA with us today. If you're watching, please subscribe to our channel. And we'll go back right into this discussion right now with a discussion of Eliot's still point. That was an interesting analogy that you made. And I found that there were two poems specifically that mention the still point of history. Those were Dear Woman and Rethinking India 75 Years of Independence. And so what was your, I don't know, what prompted those particular, that phrase and you write that phrase in those poems?
We all know, as poets, we know that there are two planes of existence. Generally, the spontaneity, the unconscious way that you write poetry. Nobody writes in a vacuum.
Right.
That's what Eliot says, but that's what all of us know. That we do not write in a vacuum. We have an entire legacy of writers in the past, of those writing today, and something, the subconscious, the subterranean is there.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, there's a merging of, as I said, yourself, and somewhere we are looking for a kind of a still point of history, because somewhere unconsciously, subconsciously, all of us were writing poetry as the highest form of art.
Mm-hmm.
At least the genesis of literary expression through the ages, somewhere we are trying to reach a kind of a stillness, a kind of a transcendence, a kind of a non-movement, from the dynamic and the organic to a kind of a transcendental stasis, a kind of a transcendental stasis. So what happens is, I think when you start writing, and especially in the context that you're trying to get out of some kind of an agony, some kind which is buried inside, so you are looking for stasis, for some kind of a stasis which gives you peace, which sort of is an amalgamation of the past, the present, and the future. And so when you have transcended, you want to reach that still point of history. So that's a kind of a transcendence of time, or maybe it's also a time in its infinite state, whichever way. So that still point of history came very. I don't know what both of you. I mean, what take you would have. That's my take.
That sounds pretty. That's a very deep description of and I believe that Eliot's poem has 4 quartets, if I remember correctly, where he mentions the still point, and I perceive it as a sort of infinity, and as you say, a kind of timelessness, a meeting of past, present, and future. They all combine, and then poetry is a sort of timeless expression, and I agree with you on that. And I'm curious, how do we reach that timeless expression of poetry? I mean, where does it come from? Do you have any insight, Dr. SANTOSH? You're muted.
Well, I believe that poetry should be spontaneous. I come across certain people, it appears as if they have kept the dictionary right in front of them, and they're picking a verse from the dictionary and insinuating them into the poem. So that is not poetry. Poetry is raw expression. Poetry comes from the heart. It pours forth from the innermost recesses of the heart. So we see Laksmishree's poems, they are outpourings of an overwhelmed heart. So we see things around us. We see war-ravaged countries. We see the orphans. We see the poor. We look around in anguished stupor. And you want to do something. You want to change the world, and you start writing. You start writing, as I say. You start writing and writing. So that is poetry, and this poetry can heal the world, which comes straight from the heart. And
you're so right.
Yeah. When you write. So you pour your innermost feelings on paper, and the world sees it, the world feels it. So that is very, very important. Verbosity.
Paradox, isn't it? It's like there's an ordered spontaneity. Like you think of spontaneity as like confetti being thrown in the air and it just kind of falls randomly. But a lot of poetry is really ordered too. It's like there's an order to it that it has to be kind of constructed universally to be able to sort of like convey a meaning. And we have this language where every word means something to somebody, and we have a kind of concrete universalism to language that we can all interpret a certain thing from a particular object in the poem. So it's very paradox.
This universalism reminds me of this poem of hers, and if we have the time, I'll just take half a minute and recite a few lines from this, because I really love this. It talks of unity, no hierarchy, We perch in joy on varied branches of leafy stairs inbuilt in trees, green pedestals for songsters, voice throws from our different cadenced levels, twigs and foliage of calm, offering our deep balm. We sing in diverse sonatas, tones and tenors, since the essence is our song as we mirror life with no hierarchy. So this is a utopian world she is looking at. And the refrain, she sort of instills this confidence in us that we can have this world where the essence is a song as we mirror life with no hierarchy. I really love
I just wanted to add one more line before Dustin says something to this. I feel one thing which, as Santosh said, the dictionary, and to make the poem so unmanageably misunderstood to people, or people not being able to understand, or rather making it so cerebral. We have even in music, in music also you have people who are technically, they are just putting craft and craft into it, in which the artistry, the spontaneity is lost. And that is being done deliberately. I'm not saying that you don't edit your poems. Of course, Wordsworth said poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. And of course, he also said, when I say emotion recollected in tranquility. So spontaneity, if it goes. Even musicians, they may be very full of craft and technicality, but it doesn't touch the heart. If a song doesn't touch your heart, if a poem doesn't touch your heart, if what you're trying to say goes above the head, I mean, that's the basic thing I find about many contemporary poets. They feel that if you make it go above your head, then they're writing, A-grade poetry, which is so wrong. That's not poetry. And they're making an extra effort to make it absolutely unintelligible.
That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
And I think it's the image of the phoenix comes to mind. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
That comes from heart touches hearts. And,
Right.
yeah. So
I think so too. Yes, definitely. And I was thinking the phoenix, like the phoenix, is an image of poetry's creation, because it's like you plunge into these depths to pull out the poetry. You go into spiritual depths, and sometimes it's anguishing. You feel like this anguish, and you seek to write something that's beautiful, and it has a little bit of complexity to it, makes people think, makes people feel at the same time, and you pull out something really unique and fiery in the creation that's relatable to other people, and it's not something that is easily done. It really isn't. But at the same time, it's for a poet's used to touching the fire, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's not math. I always tell my creative writing students and all, I say, it's not like today I'm going to write a poem. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. I mean, it's not maths. It's not maths like Santosh said. You have a dictionary and then you try to make it. And I've seen very so-called eminent poets, they are making it unintelligible. Of course, like Eliot says, the symbols that we use, the images which come spontaneously, you don't have to. Of course, it is supposed to be indirect. Poetry is not prose. The more oblique it is, but it should come out in spontaneous images, in symbols, which he calls objective correlative. Now, the objective correlative is of that human emotion. It's not like looking at a book or doing some maths paper. Now, here I'm writing a poem. 2 plus 2 plus 2. No. That's not the thing that Eliot talks about. The images also have to be spontaneous. And there are so many, I think I was discussing with Santosh, there are so many parts of poems which we write even after 10 years, we can't change them. We may have edited that poem in some parts. Even Tagore had many versions of one poem. But there were certain important segments of that Tagorean poem which remained unaltered, no matter how many versions he had.
Yes. These poems appeal because of the rawness. They look fresh every time you read them. That is the beauty of it all. And that beauty can be seen in poetry too. And
it's a lot of work too. It's not something that's easily done. I always like to emphasize that it can be work to write a really good poem. It's either emotional labor or there's a lot of sitting down and deciding which words and which images or make it flow spontaneously and flow within the poem. Another thing I noticed in your collection, there's a poem called Cuckoo and Rapture, which you present God as kind of an anarchist. And I thought that was interesting. How do you feel about that now, and what does that mean to you?
Well, that was written in a moment of
I
actual
think
rage.
talks of
Right.
anarchy in poetry. You should just let yourself go and talk of only of art and death and love.
Right.
No, but that poem, like Dustin, in some ways, right? Whether I've written that word, is God an artist or an anarchist?
Right.
And that was written. I still remember that moment in a moment of terrifying rage.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I was brought up in a cradle of faith. I know whether it's you call it a Durga Puja or whatever. I was brought up in a cradle of faith, and then I faced many vicissitudes in life. I don't know whether people have faced those of that kind or not. And then this was like, I can't take it anymore. That poem was written, that Kaku. First, I wrote Kaku in crisis. Then I
Mm-hmm.
said, no, my Kaku will not be in crisis. Then I changed that to Kaku in rapture. But still, that line was there. Is God an artist or an anarchist? And that was written in a moment of rage, questioning my faith between, this struggle between faith and rationality. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't rationalize why. This why was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a tussle between this cradle of faith where I was brought up and these things which I experienced. So that was a moment of real rage. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
it was Kaku in crisis. And then I changed it to Kaku in rapture.
Very interesting distinction.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments on that, Dr. Santosh?
No comments. I'm tongue tied. I'm
It's quite interesting. I sometimes conceive of. I mean, must conceive of anarchism and anarchy as a very different thing than a lot
I
of
was
people.
to ask you about this Cuckoo in Rapture. I really love the poem. In fact, I loved all the
Me
poems in the book.
too. Yeah,
These
me
couple
too.
of poems really appeal to me.
So when I
They
What
hear
was,
God as
what
an
is it?
anarchist or an artist, I almost think of the two as correlatives in a certain sense. Like, because I think of anarchism as kind of an artistic philosophy, but I think you mean, like, is God an anarchist? Does he like to confound life? Does he like to confront life and be, antagonistic, or does he like to create and sort of like build from the ashes and stuff, or is he just constantly wanting to dump on us, as people? It's like I think it's a legitimate question. It kind of reminds me of, like, say, Kierkegaard saying that to a certain extent, reason and rationality will take you so far, but at a certain point you have to take the leap of faith. And so,
Yeah,
to me, that's what I think of in
yeah,
your poem
yeah,
and what you
yeah, yeah.
said.
You're right. I mean, you just said it because there is a tussle, and I think creativity is also a tussle. Like I think Dustin is trying to infer. I mean, I inferred that from what you said, that making, uh, instead of making just you know a design or something which is geometrical, God is an artist. In that way, he's also an anarchist because he's constantly making, remaking, destroying, and the cycle of life in
Right.
nature, the
The Phoenix
seasons, the
again.
winter, spring, So all the time, I always say this, I don't know why I say it. I say, life is the truth and death is an aberration. I
Hmm.
always say, because when I see a plant, I've seen it's totally gone. And then suddenly there's a sprouting of new leaf. So if we take that image from nature, that reality from nature, so I say life is the truth and death is an aberration.
Hmm. Very interesting. So we have a remaining minute or so. Does anybody want to throw in some extra words and thoughts?
Dustin, can you read if you want to read?
I
Do you
actually
want to
don't
read?
have the book on me, so I would have to dig it up on my computer.
Okay,
It would take
okay,
a minute,
okay, okay.
but the whole book is beautiful and wonderful. The cover art is excellent, and I'm really glad you released
I,
this
I,
book into
I
the world.
just I think in this process of, because it is after all, the message is from greater humanity. That's why this book I find is very close to my heart. A message of renewal, a message of resurgence, where war also comes in. Today we are living in a
Right.
conflict-ridden world. I mean, total conflict-ridden world, and I sincerely believe that it is only art and poetry and music. I mean, the arts, which really are the panacea for humanity. And that's why I wrote that Ukraine, that where are the sunflowers? And there are some anti war poems here also. It is again about destruction and about victory and rejuvenation after destruction. It's about resurrection, ultimate resurrection. So I think these poems somewhere they're very close to my heart. I only hope readers will also want to see what is this resurrection, all the facets of destruction and all the facets of resurrection. And I'm not saying that I did it in a very calculative way. I didn't. But ultimately, when I look back at it, it is a total message of a panacea for humanity. That's what I feel.
Yes,
Very good.
it leaves you with optimism. It leaves you with faith, despite the paradoxes and the juxtaposition of negativities and positivities. It is the positivity which shines ultimately. So that is very, very good. That is very unique. In fact, that is the message that your book gives.
Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. I appreciate the book, and I hope it succeeds and goes farther and farther into the atmosphere with the Phoenix flying. And I really congratulate you on a fine production. And like I said, the cover is beautiful, and the words are beautiful. I read through it carefully. I really found a lot of intriguing wisdom in there. And so I advise anybody that's watching the program today to pick up a copy of this Blue Phoenix book. It's incredible. It's intense. And if you're watching, also subscribe to our channel and leave some comments on our programs. Tomorrow we have an excellent program, the Post-Colonial Poetry, The Traumatized Race Speaks Up, Part 2. So be prepared for that at 11. I believe it's at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. That'll be 10:30 p.m. in India.
9:30? 9:30 or
It'll be 10:30 on start. It'll be recorded, so if anybody wants to watch it later on, it'll be on there. So if guys watching right now on the program, just feel free to jump on and leave some comments for us. We'll have an excellent program, Post-Colonial Poetry, Traumatized Race Speaks Up tomorrow. And just keep an eye out for our books. We have Vandana Kumar's book is coming out pretty soon, and so that'll be available all over the planet. Hopefully we'll be able to get you guys an interest in that book. And thanks for joining us today, guys. Dr. SANTOSH and Dr. Laksmisree, thank you so much for this program. I really got a lot out of it. It was a great discussion. Thank you so much.
I would also request my friend
Dr. Laksmisree. It was very,
Thank you,
very
Dr. Santosh and Dustin for
enriched myself.
giving me this. Yeah, tell me.
I have enriched myself, and I am leaving this platform a better person.
Absolutely. Wonderful
I just
discussion.
want, if people want, they should look for the book and read it, because I feel it's my special book. And thank you so much, Dustin, for such a wonderful platform, and Santosh for such wonderful words. I'm very, very thankful, and namaste, and wonderful.
Well, you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the